Welcome to VU Academy. Today we will learn about the nervous system. The nervous system is a complex network that coordinates the body's activities by transmitting the signals between the different parts of our body. So, this nervous system is mainly divided into two parts as central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. So, this peripheral nervous system has two main components. They are the autonomic nervous system and somatic nervous system. This autonomic nervous system is divided into two parts as sympathetic division and the parasympathetic division. The somatic nervous system is also divides into two parts as sensory nervous system and the motor nervous system. Now, let's learn about the central nervous system first. It includes the brain and the spinal cord. In this slide, let's learn about our brain's anatomy. So, our brain is comprised with the four main parts. They are the cerebrum, cerebellum, diencephalon, and the brain stem. So, according to the first picture, we all can see that the cerebrum here. So, the cerebrum is the largest part of our brain. It divides into two hemispheres as the left and the right hemispheres. So these two hemispheres are connected by a special structure called as the corpus callosum. Each hemisphere is divided into lobes for a specialized function. In the second picture, we will study those lobes. Here, the bluish color denotes the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is helpful for the higher cognitive function. For instance, thinking, decision making, and the problem solving, and also helpful for the controlling the voluntary movements. There is a there's a specialized place situated in this frontal lobe that's called as the Broca's area. It's doing the language production. And let's move on to the parietal lobe. The parietal lobe is helpful for the process of the sensory information, mostly the touch, temperature, and the pain. Then the greenish part is the temporal lobe. Here it's helpful for the hearing and the auditory processing. Further, there is a specialized area presence in the temporal lobe that's called as the Wernicke's area. It's helpful for the memory and language comprehension. Here, this is the occipital lobe, the pinkish part. It's helpful for the vision processing, mostly related with the color, shape, and the motion. Then the diencephalon. The diencephalon is called as the core of our brain. It includes the three main components, the thalamus, hypothalamus, and the epithalamus. The thalamus is essential for the sensory signals. It helpful for the transmission of sensory signals from the cerebrum to the cortex, and then the hypothalamus. It regulates the autonomic functions like temperature, hunger, thirst, and hormone. The other part is the epithalamus. It contains the pineal gland or the pineal gland, which secretes the melatonin hormone, which helpful for the sleep regulation. Now, from this picture, you all can see the brain stem. The brain stem consists the midbrain, pons, and medulla. The midbrain controls the eye movement as well as it helps to maintain the auditory and the visual reflexes. Then the pons, it relays the information between the cerebrum and the cerebellum and regulates the breathing. The final part is the medulla. The medulla controls the heart rate, then the blood pressure as well as the breathing. Then let's move on to the cerebellum. The cerebellum is called as the little brain. It coordinates the balance, posture, and the fine motor movements. Further, it contains the gray matter and the white matter. In our next slide, we will study about the anatomy of our spinal cord. Our spinal cord is extend from the medulla oblongata to the lumbar region. So, according to this picture, you all can see that there is a outermost region and the innermost region, as well as there's a central canal. So, in the outer region, it occupies the white matter. So, this white matter is consist of the myelinated nerve fibers for signal transmission. Then the gray matter. Purple color denotes the gray matter. It's the inner region. It contains the neuron cell bodies and it's involved in the reflexes. Here the central canal slides in this region. So it contains the cerebrospinal fluid or the CSF, which helpful for the cushioning and the nutrient exchange. In this slide, let's learn about the spinal nerve region. So, in our vertebral column from C1 to C7, it lights the cervical vertebra. So it supplies the nerves for neck, arm and diaphragm region. From here you can see the functions relevant to specific vertebrae, specific nerves innervate from the C1 to C7 vertebra. So from C1 to C4 helpful for breathing, C2 helpful for the head and neck movement, C4 to C6 heart rate, C6 shoulder movement and C5 wrist and elbow movement, C7 to T1 helpful for hand and finger movement. From the green color, it shows the thoracic vertebrae extend from the T1 to T12. So it innervates the nerves for the chest, abdomen and for the muscles. So T1 to T12 is helpful for the sympathetic tone, including temperature regulation, T2 to T12 trunk stability, and from T12 to L2 helpful for ejaculation. Here purple part denotes the lumbar vertebra, extend from L1 to L5, supplies the nerve for lower back and legs. So according to this one, L2 help for the hip motion and L3 for the knee extension, L4 to S1 for foot motion. The yellowish color part denotes the sacrum. Sacrum is formed by the fusion of five bones. So from S2 to S3 it helpful for the bowel and the bladder activity, S2 to S4 for sexual function and S5 is helpful for bowel and bladder activity. Final part is the coccyx. So coccyx innervates the nerve for the tailbone region. So it's innervating coccygeus and levator animuses and then skin over the coccyx. Now let's see how the reflex arc is work. So before that, from the first diagram itself shows the anatomy of our neuron. So the neuron is consisting with the cell body, nucleus, dendrites, action and with the terminal buttons along with the Schwann body. So let's see what's the typical functions of the each part. The cell body. The cell body contains the nucleus, so it's helpful for the process of the information. Then these are called as dendrites. These dendrites receives the signals from the other neurons. And here's the action. So action transmit those impulses towards the next neuron or to the muscles. Here you can see the Schwann cells and it's equipped with the myelin sheath. It speed up the signal transmission. And finally here you can see the terminal buttons. They send the signals to the neurons or for the muscles. After learning about the anatomy of our neuron, let's move on to the reflex arc. So here you can see the skin, afferent nerve, spinal cord, efferent nerve, and the muscles. As we all know, if there's any injury or trauma occurs to us, or we each and everyone experience about that thing, so what happens, we feel some kind of pain. So as a result of that, the sensory nerves or the afferent nerves detect those pain stimulus. Then they transmit those signals from these afferent nerves into our spinal cord. So spinal cord is the center where the integration of the signaling is occur. So it processes the signals and immediately generate a response. Then from the efferent nerves, it means from the motor nerves, carries these response signals from the spinal cord to the muscle. As a result of that, it causes the contraction of these muscles, pulling away that painful stimulus. So that happens in the reflex arc. In our next slide also, it shows a detailed description regarding how the reflex arc is working. Now let's move on to the protective structures of the central nervous system. As we already know, the central nervous system is including the brain and our spinal cord. So these two are very important and essential organs. So these three structures are helpful for protecting our brain and spinal cord. Those are the meninges, cerebrospinal fluid, and the blood-brain barrier. The meninges have three main layers. The outermost layer is the dura mater. Here you all can see. And the middle part is the arachnoid matter. So the innermost part is the pia mater. Beneath that, the brain and the spinal cord lies. So in between these areas, there you can see the subarachnoid space and the subdural space. Now let's move on towards the anatomy of the peripheral nervous system. Our peripheral nerve system has two main components. So they are the somatic nerve system and the autonomic nerve system. The somatic nerve system is divided into cranial nerves and spinal nerves. Then the autonomic nerve system has two main components. They are the sympathetic nerve system and parasympathetic nerve system. Now let's study about the somatic nerve system. The somatic nerve system comprised with the cranial nerves and spinal nerves. So this cranial nerve has 12 pairs and arises from our brainstem, and also it controls our various functions of the head, neck, and some other internal organs. Here the first one is called as olfactory nerve. It's responsible for smell. Second is optic nerve. It's helpful for vision. The third one is ocular motor. It's responsible for our eye movement and for the pupil constriction. The fourth one is the trochlear nerve. The trochlear nerve is helpful for the eye movement. So mainly the superior oblique muscle is helped. Then the trigeminal nerve is the fifth one. It's indicating with light bluish color. So the facial sensation and chewing is done by this nerve innervation. Then the sixth one is the abductor nerve, and abductor nerve is doing the eye movement. Mainly the lateral rectus muscle is helpful for this one. Then the pinkish one shows the vestibular cochlear nerve. It's helpful for the hearing as well as for the balance. Then the seventh one is called as the facial nerve. Facial nerve is helpful for the facial expressions, taste, salivation, and for the tear production. The ninth one is the glossopharyngeal nerve. It's helpful for the salivating, tasting, and for the salivation. The tenth one is the vagus. It helpful for the controlling of our autonomic components like heart, lungs, and digestion. And the 11th one is accessory nerve. It's helpful for the shoulder and neck movement. Then the 12th one is the hypoglossal nerve. It's the final one. It's helpful for the tongue movement. Now let's move towards the spinal column. So it innervates the spinal nerves. There are 31 pair of spinal nerves. Those are emerged from the spinal cord and help for the controlling of motor and sensory function. From C1 to C7, it shows the cervical vertebra, cervical nerves. So it gives the control for the motor and sensory control for the neck, shoulder, diaphragm, and for the arms. Then the thoracic one, green color denotes the thoracic T1 to T12. It innervates the motor and sensory function for chest and abdomen. This one is the lumbar part. So from L1 to L5, spinal nerves supply the motor and sensory function for the lower back and the legs. This is the sacral one. It supplies the motor and sensory nerves for the pelvic organs and the lower limb. The coccyx is formed by the fusion of four vertebrae, so it supplies the motor and sensory functions for the tailbone region. Now let's study about the autonomic nerve system. Our autonomic nerve system has two main components. The first one is sympathetic system, the other one is parasympathetic system. The sympathetic system prepares our body in the stressful condition. So it arises from the thoracic and the lumbar spinal cord. Here it uses the sympathetic chain ganglia to transmit those signals quickly. As we all experience in the conditions like fight or the flight mode, it causes the dilatation of our pupils and inhibition of salivation, relaxation of the bronchi, like sympathetic related functions, and acceleration of the heartbeat, inhibits the peristaltics and secretion, stimulates the glucose production and release, secretion of adrenaline and noradrenaline, inhibition of the bladder contraction, stimulates the organs. Then the parasympathetic nerve system, it promotes the relaxation and energy conservation. So it arises from our brainstem and from the sacral spinal cord. So in here it causes the constriction of pupil, stimulates the salivary flow, constrict the bronchi, lowering the heartbeat, stimulate peristalsis and secretion, stimulates the bile release, contracts the bladder. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe my channel. Bye bye.